Start off with a prayer. Heavenly Father, we pray that your teachings will guide us in this meeting and in our lives. Lord, please look after those who have fallen in defense of our country. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mike Doherty.
Here.
Bob Mueller.
Here.
Carter Dickerson.
Here.
Tom Bergamini.
Here.
Matt Zeck.
Here.
Christy Arlinghouse.
Here.
Okay, next item is approval of the minutes for January 9th council meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes from January 9th council meeting.
Mike's made a motion to approve.
I'll
We have
second.
Christie seconds. Roll call.
Bob Mueller.
Yes.
Carter Dickerson.
Yes.
Tom Bergamini.
Yes.
Matt Zeck.
Yes.
Christy Arlinghouse.
Yes.
Mike Doherty.
Yes.
Okay, next item is approval of the minutes for January 23rd, 2017 special call meeting. Need a motion?
So moved.
Mike made the motion.
I'll second.
Matt seconds. Roll call.
Carter Dickerson.
I think I have to abstain from that one.
Yeah. Tom Bergamini.
Yes.
Matt Zeck.
Yes.
Christy Arlinghouse.
Yes.
Mike Doherty.
Yes.
Bob Mueller.
Yes.
Okay. Next item is PDS. Andy. Stage 2 development plan for Petco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. For the record, my name is Andy Budegovich, and I am the current planning manager with Planning Development Services. The issue before you this evening is the review and approval of a Stage 2 development plan for a Petco over at the Buttermilk Town Center. If you bear with me here, I do want to go through a couple of slides for you. First of all, if you turn your attention to the screen, this is the location. It is an outlot of the main shopping center next to the existing bank. It is really, aside from the bank, going to be one of the first outlots developed within the town center. You should have all received a staff report outlining the issues. I don't want to go over all the specific details, but I do want to spend some time on going through the development plan just so you have an idea of the main issues that staff has identified, and then we can, of course, talk about anything else within the staff report. So the site in total is about 2 acres, and it is located on the southwest side of Clock Tower Way. The site plan indicates a 12,500 square foot retail structure. It will be Petco, which, as you know, is pet and pet accessory retail establishment. The structure itself will be 1 story in height, and there will be 74 off-street parking spaces provided. Access to the site will be from 2 existing curb cuts on the Clock Tower Way. Both of them are shared curb cuts with the adjacent outlot parcels. There is one on sort of the western side of the site and then one on the eastern side of the site. And as I mentioned, these access points will be shared with the adjacent outlots. The applicant is showing stamped pavement for the pedestrian crosswalks, as well as providing other detailed information regarding the sidewalks. The applicant is identifying 1 loading space located to the rear of the property. This is a 16 by 74 foot loading space. The applicant is also providing a photometric plan, which identifies the provision for parking lot lighting as well as some pedestrian scale lighting along the front of the building. This is very similar to what is existing by the Firehouse Sub and the Sweet Frog ice cream shop with those pedestrian scale lighting. So these are the lights that are proposed for directly in front of the Petco building, and then these are the lights that are going to be proposed for the parking lot. They're just your standard black or dark brown parking lot lights, but it's consistent with what exists within the rest of the development. The applicant has submitted a development plan, or excuse me, a landscaping plan which shows the preservation of a majority of the existing vegetation located to the rear of the site. They are showing provisions for some perimeter landscaping as well as some interior island landscaping. There is a pad for a dumpster located on the eastern side of the site in question. This is a two pad dumpster area. And the applicant has also submitted some color renderings. First, I'll touch on the signs. The applicant is proposing one main sign located on the front of the building, as well as 4 accessory signs. Staff refers to these as services signs located on the front of the building. And then going down to the next page, there is also a sign that will be located on, perhaps I went too far. Let me see. Nope, I didn't. Here we go. One of the elevation drawings, and maybe it's when, yeah, here we go. When we get down to the elevation drawings, the applicant is showing another sign located on the side of the building as well. So this is the front building. This one doesn't show the services signs, and then this is the side of the building. Going up, they are also proposing to use a panel on the clock tower signage as well.
To get back to the side sign, is that, if I'm looking at the front of the store, I see that one, is the one on the side, as I'm looking at the front, is it on the right or the left?
Facing PNC.
It will
On the
be
right,
on this
okay.
side, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. That makes more sense. I can see it coming in.
Regarding the materials, it actually shows up a lot better up here than it does on my screen here, and I wish I could zoom in, but I'll try to give you a general idea of where these materials are located. First of all, the staff identifies the gray and aluminum door framing and window framing. The applicant is proposing brick columns on 3 sides of the building, and white and tan concrete masonry units used as a primary building material basically on the rest of the building. So this is all concrete masonry units. Down on the bottom here, this is the rear elevation, is all concrete masonry unit. And basically anywhere you see the white brown color on here is the concrete masonry unit. The upper levels is going to be white ephes, and they are also proposing a blue, what do they call it? A blue prefabricated steel canopy and an area of brown composite wood planks over as an accent material over top of the main entrance to the site in question. As I mentioned, they're proposing several signs. This sign here is 155 square feet in area. There was not information submitted for the sign on the side of the building, although it looks roughly about the same size as the sign on the front of the building. And then those 4 services signs that we saw in this location were total about 28 square feet. Like I said, that is just a brief overview of the development. I want to go through staff's recommendations and then spend more time answering your questions as opposed to covering the information that may or may not be relevant to this discussion. So staff is giving this a favorable recommendation subject to several conditions. The first condition is the landscaping plan. The landscaping regulations within the Crescent Springs zoning ordinance requires a certain amount of interior vehicular use landscaping, which is basically a fancy way of saying these landscape islands. As you can see on the site plan, they are showing these landscape islands. However, we need the information, the calculations submitted to us to ensure that there's actually 5% is the standard, so 5% of that interior area is landscaping. You know, we could kind of ballpark it, but using the figures from the applicant is probably going to be more accurate. Also, landscaping is also required along any basically public or private right-of-way, which is along Clock Tower Way. And as you can see here, there is basically a lack of landscaping along this area, and so staff notes that insufficient information has been provided. Staff had several comments regarding the design of the building, and I want to go back to this slide to go into a little bit more detail. First of all, the design guidelines state that the outlot building should incorporate a tower of some sort. And as you can see from this elevation submitted, there is no tower that's incorporated within the design of this building. The rear of the building should be the same color, similar design as the other four sides. The design guidelines, they basically state that the buildings are four-sided and all four sides should be treated the same in terms of material design. And as you can see, the rear of this building is remarkably different than the other sides of the building. Staff notes that the quantity of the CMU used as a exterior building material exceeds what the design guidelines state is required. Concrete masonry units are supposed to be a foundation and accent material, and brick and EFIS is supposed to be the main material. Staff notes that pretty much half of each elevation is the concrete masonry units, which in our opinion exceeds the requirement of what the design guidelines require. And likewise, it's showing the brick as an accent color, where really the brick is supposed to be one of the primary materials, with the concrete masonry units being the accent materials. Staff notes that the roof coping should be white EFIS or an equivalent acceptable by the city, and that the canopy be polycarbonate or an equivalent acceptable by the city. The applicant shows a prefabricated metal blue canopy, which doesn't meet the design guidelines, and the applicant also is showing metal coping, which is inconsistent with the design guidelines. Finally, staff makes a note of the aluminum framing. While this isn't necessarily prohibited or permitted by the design guidelines, staff did note that when we went out, it does appear that this is consistent with other buildings within the shopping center. So it's our opinion that it's consistent with the design guidelines and should be allowed, even though it doesn't exactly spell it out within the design guidelines. I do want to point out two sections of the design guidelines that were approved and agreed upon between the developer and the city. The first one is in section 1, which states that it's not the intent of the design guidelines to prohibit national identity or trademark signage or colors. And in section 3, states that outlot buildings shall be allowed which will incorporate regional and nationally recognized architecture. You know, staff did a real quick Google of Petco, and they have buildings around the area and even regionally that are similar in materials and colors as this one. So our only point is that this does appear to be a nationally prototypical design for the Petco stores. Other, I think, fairly minor things is that the parapet walls need to screen all rooftop equipment. We simply just do not have enough information, but that's a fairly simple thing to show on the permits. Also, the waste receptacle needs to be screened and shall be the same materials as the primary building. We don't have any information that shows us what that dumpster or waste receptacle screening is going to be. And finally, the staff notes that the signage, while it generally conforms with the design guidelines, there's a few things that need to be pointed out. First of all, I mentioned those 4 services signs. Those are technically not permitted by the design guidelines. The design guidelines only state that the wording necessary to describe the business, trade name, or logo are allowed. And so those services are not permitted. Also, the maximum height of sign letters is limited to 36 inches. Staff notes that the proposed lettering height on the wall sign is 60 inches in height. And one final comment about the signs is we just do not have, even though it appears to be a similar size as the sign on the front of the building, we don't have any dimension information regarding the size of the sign on the side of the building. That'll wrap up my comments. Like I said, I really want to address your questions specifically regarding this. And I think there is someone also from the applicant here to answer any of your questions as well.
Thank you. Andy,
Thank you.
any questions?
I just have an internal question for Tom. What was the design thought process, since you were probably involved in the towers? That each building had to have towers. What was the
There had
city
to
trying
be
to
some-
accomplish with that?
Consistency in design with the main building.
You weren't trying to build a fort or anything, were you?
No.
Okay.
You said the sign is supposed to be no more than 36 inches tall.
Right, the letters of the sign.
Am I wrong? I'm picturing the Remke sign, and I'm picturing more than 36 inches, and I'm picturing the PNC sign, and I'm picturing more than 36 inches. Obviously, I've never taken a tape measure.
Yeah.
PNC is not 36.
No?
Well, you are correct about the Remke, but different standards apply to the main retail center than to the opera.
Okay.
So the Remke may have been permitted. No, you're right, I don't know the PNC sign. I didn't notice it, but
What did you say the signage dimensions were?
the signs are 60 inches in height.
And it's 36?
Right.
It's almost twice as high. Twice as high as permitted.
Right.
Okay. Also, if you could go back to the one elevation drawing in the back.
Okay.
There is nothing to hide the HVAC units. There's no parapet wall along the back.
Correct. And I want to just make sure, I want to read the design guidelines to make sure
Yeah, no,
what the actual
that's,
standard is.
that was one of the specific intents of the outlots, is that, especially if there's visibility from thoroughfares, there will be visibility from Butternut Pike to the back of this building.
Yes.
Okay.
Because this building actually sits above the Butternut.
Higher than cork and bottle and.
Yes, a little bit higher. Also, you mentioned landscaping behind the building. To my recollection, there is no landscaping behind the building. I think all that was thrown in was grass seeds.
Hill goes down to the railroad tracks, right?
No, it doesn't go to the railroad tracks because of that. Go back to the,
I know.
Let's see what we got. In,
yeah, it doesn't go to the railroad tracks because of the back of the
yeah,
shopping center.
you're right. I mean, they were showing the outline
A
of
little bit
some
of both.
landscaping back here, but it doesn't appear, I mean, you're correct. It doesn't appear that there is
Also,
much.
I do have one question about the outlet. If you go to the footprint of the building, couple photographs up, all right. No, one more.
You want this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Am I reading that correct? There is parking in the right-of-way easement? Or the,
Right.
See,
This is identified as an easement.
right. Because that was, is that where the bridge access point was gonna be?
It was supposed to go there, yes.
Oh, we haven't abandoned that.
Okay. I don't know exactly what happened. The information that we had in our office was that even though there's an easement, that it was for all intents and purposes, not going to happen,
But
basically.
it's never been abandoned.
Okay,
Part
right.
of the original thing, so what you in effect going to have is somebody putting the parking lot in the roadway with cars.
Okay. Well, then that is definitely something that will have to be addressed. I don't know, based on 12,500 square feet divided by 1,000 is 12 and a half times 4 is, if somebody's real quick at math can figure out, that's how many parking spaces?
50?
15, okay.
No,
So,
do they have access to the parking spaces across the road?
uh,
Restricted?
Across the street.
I don't know what's restricted, but they are showing, I think, 74 off-street parking spaces, so they could remove several of those off-street parking spaces and still meet the minimum requirements of the zoning ordinance.
Right.
They're about showing 25 more, so numbers-wise, they could remove those 4 or 5 spaces in that easement and still meet the requirements.
Right. But the issue of having a parking lot into a roadway, whether it's built or not, is a problem.
Okay.
And you can almost remove that entire section where the black arrow is right now. I mean,
Right. and down here too a little
And
bit.
that, where you see the little dotted line, that's,
Right.
everything on that,
Now
that's.
you're down around 60, so.
I think that it would be good just as a general conversation, because this happened so long ago, and certain people with staff are no longer there who may remember these conversations. To just kind of sit down and figure out what's going on and what needs to be done. But,
Yeah,
you know, our intent wasn't to just allow them to do that. We really thought that that issue had already been kind of decided and was passed, so.
That does answer your question. I mean, do they get to count the parking spots on the other side of the road? Which,
well, there is a reciprocal access.
I mean, there's a ton of parking over
There's a
there.
reciprocal access.
Remke's never goes that far, and
All
LA
the
Fitness doesn't go
shopping
that far,
center
yeah.
tenants use all the parking,
Right.
so, yeah, they do have access to these parking spaces over there.
Right. And I would say either way, they would
Fine.
probably have more than enough parking.
I agree.
Absolutely, right,
I would just say if that we need to address that easement to include that in your action.
right, right. But your point is well taken about not meeting the design guidelines. There's certainly some things that just are not conforming. Is that similar to the Petco store on Florence?
Maybe the applicant knows that's the same kind of.
Who's the applicant? Which one's the applicant?
You're representing the applicant, right?
Yes.
Do you know if that's similar to the one in Florence? Off of Easton? Because I know that's a line store.
How long ago was it built, do you know?
I have no idea if by Target.
Many years.
This is the 2016 prototype Petco that's throughout the, the country.
Yeah, I know where it is, but that's also a line store, it's not a freestanding store.
It's not a code, I think.
Any other questions?
The signage, I presume the signage is gonna be lit.
The signs are allowed to be lit. We don't actually have the information. The design guidelines go into like what color can be in the
No,
return.
no, I understand, but it's just.
Yeah, we don't have that information.
Right, well, I think we'll.
Unless if it's in like the footnotes, which it could be,
Ralph.
but.
Ferguson.
No,
Ferguson.
it's TER.
Yeah.
Was it?
Okay. Ralph, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Sure. We can address some of the comments.
Sure.
Answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
I have a materials board that I can pass around if you'd like to take a little closer look at the materials on the building.
This is approved, this phase two, then
All right.
this is approved to site plan.
I'm Ralph DeBrugen with Manigan Smith Group, project manager representing the site civil and the landscape on the project. Dan Eccles with Ramco Gershenson Property Trust, representing the owner, developer. I'd like to address the staff comments from Andy and answer any questions you may have. In regards to the landscape plan, look at that specifically for the guidelines. It talks about a tree for every 100 feet of frontage, so 220 feet. That would be 2.2 trees, or 3 trees per every 100 feet, so that's 6.6 trees, 7, and we have 9 on the site. And if I understand the requirement, it doesn't say specifically where those have to be. So it looks like we're in compliance there. Item 2, for every 130, for every foot of frontage of vehicular use area, we have 130. You have to have a tree for every 40 feet, going by item 1. And so that would be 3.25 trees or 4, and 8 shrubs for every one of those 4 or 32 shrubs. We have 6 trees across the frontage there, so would like.
Now, where's the frontage? You talking about the clock tower way, or are you talking about the roadway on the side and the roadway adjacent?
Well, it would either be a public access way or a private road, so I believe it is this area right here.
Right. I only see 2 trees. Unless you're counting the.
Well, I'm asking that the council would consider counting all 6 of those trees, the 2 that are in front of the building and the 2 on each side of the drives for the 6, and we'd be willing to do the 32 shrubs across the parking lot to screen the cars.
There's a reason why we did this. We want consistency. And I can tell you from experience, because I helped write the guidelines. But yeah, we want consistency throughout look, and we don't want somebody coming in and just, the modifications, the changes to our plans, wanting to create it. That's not very creative, quite honestly. And I'm gonna defer to our landscape architect here as to the quality of the trees, but, I don't know what, there's no indication what type of tree it is.
There is in the plant list, so those are black tupelo,
Okay.
and thornless honey locust, imperial honey locust, so 2 good trees.
Okay. But the main roadway we're referring to is Clock Tower Way, not,
Right.
certainly not adjacent to PNC Bank, and then.
No, that
there's
would be
an
a
issue
private
with
drive
respect to
as
that.
I view it. So in regards to counting those trees along the building, you would say that that wouldn't
Correct.
be correct? Okay. All right. Item 2, the building incorporate towers 2A. This is a prototypical building, as Andy hinted at, so we'd prefer not to have to include the towers for that reason. B, the building should be of similar, the rear of the building should be in similar color design materials as the other building elevations. We're okay with that. We'll make it a 4-sided building. The CMU, the C, the quality of CMU. We will address the elevations to reduce the use of CMU. The roof coping to be white ephes, we agree with that. We'll adjust that. Item E, the canopy to be polycarbonate. What we're showing is a powder-coated aluminum, extruded aluminum canopy, which I would say is probably a better long-term durable solution. So I would ask that you, council, consider that. And I don't know that you'd be able to tell the difference in a blue-colored polycarbonate versus blue aluminum, so they'll look and feel the same. But I think this is a better
With
long-term
respect to your
solution.
comment on the 4-sided building, does that include a parapet wall in the back?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll get down, when we get to the mechanical,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we'll address that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the way he does his report, it isn't highlighted as to what's acceptable and not acceptable. Read through it carefully and see where it is. Okay.
Item F, brick 1 replaces wood 1 above the building entrance. We're using, I assume